By sunrise, 5 people had slept in a campsite built for 4, and none of us could remember inviting the 5th. The night before, there had been exactly 3 tents above Coldwater Creek: a blue tent for Lena and Priya, a green dome for Owen, and my orange backpacking tent. I had taken a picture before dinner. 3 tents, 4 people. At 6:12 the next morning, Priya shook my shoulder. "Did somebody come in late?" A 4th tent stood 6 feet from mine. It was old canvas, dark with moisture, supported by wooden poles. Its ropes crossed the paths we had walked all evening, yet no one had tripped over them. It occupied the only open space between the fire ring and the creek. Owen crawled out and frowned. "Very funny." No one laughed. Lena circled it. There were no footprints around it, although the ground was soft from rain. The entrance was tied shut from the outside. We called out. No answer.
Owen taps the canvas with a branch. Something inside exhaled. It was a long, human breath, close enough to make the wall bow outward. After several seconds, the canvas drew inward again with a slow inhale. Lena whispered, "There's someone in there." Owen grabbed a rock. "We're opening this. Keep your hands where we can see them." The breathing stopped. We chose the only explanation that let us move. A lost hiker had found an abandoned tent and crawled inside. Maybe injured, maybe afraid. Priya's phone had no signal. My satellite messenger froze on its startup screen. Owen cut the knot and lifted the flap. The tent was empty. No sleeping bag, no backpack, no person. Only 4 sleeping pads laid side by side. Each held an indentation, as if someone had just stood up. Lena gave a weak laugh. "So it's a prank." "By who?" Priya asked. Inside, the air smelled of wet soil and old smoke. And the nearest pad was a clean rectangle in the mildew, exactly the size of my phone. My phone was still in my hand. Owen wanted to leave. Lena insisted we check the trees in case someone had slipped out the back. We stayed together and searched uphill. 20 yards from camp, Lena found a boot print. Then another. 4 parallel sets of identical tracks descended through the ferns and ended at our campsite. The tread matched Owen's boots, including a crescent-shaped cut in the left heel. He stared at them. Someone copied it. "No," Priya said. "Someone copied you." Owen went straight to his tent. His folded clothes had been scattered. At the bottom of his backpack, where his spare socks should have been, he found a coil of weathered rope identical to the extra tent's guy lines. That was when our explanation changed. We no longer thought someone had arrived during the night. We thought someone had been inside our tents. We packed fast. The extra tent began breathing again. Inhale. Exhale. 4 shapes pressed against the canvas from within. A shoulder, a bowed head, fingers dragging down the wall. Priya covered her mouth. Owen tore open the flap. Empty again. But our belongings now rested on the sleeping pads. My jacket, Priya's bottle, Lena's hat. On the 4th lay Owen's knife. He looked down. His hand was empty. We ran. The parking lot was 3 miles away, following blue trail markers beside the creek. We had walked it the previous afternoon. Now every marker pointed back toward camp. "Vandals," Owen said too quickly. At the 3rd tree, fresh blue paint dripped from a new marker on the wrong side of the trunk. My compass spun. We followed the creek instead.
Water ran toward the highway. That fact could not change. 40 minutes later, we heard the rapids and pushed through the brush. We had returned to our campsite. Our 3 tents were pitched again, although we had packed them. Smoke rose from the fire. 4 metal cups sat beside it, steaming. For 1 second, the familiar arrangement felt safe. Then Lena lifted a cup. Her name had been scratched into the metal. Our cups had never been engraved. From inside the extra tent, a voice said, "You took too long." It was my voice. Owen and Priya bolted uphill. Lena grabbed my wrist. The tent flap had been sewn shut with red thread. The stitches formed 4 letters: M-A-R-K. The canvas inhaled. Then all 3 of my friends screamed from inside it. Owen shouted that he had found the road. Priya yelled my name. Lena begged me to cut the stitches. At the same time, the real Lena stood beside me, crushing my wrist. "Don't answer them," she whispered. The voices stopped. Owen and Priya crashed back through the brush. They had run in different directions and somehow met beside the creek. The tent spoke again, now in Lena's voice. "Mark," it said, "there are only 3 of us out here." We counted. 4 people stood by the fire. We counted again. Priya looked at my phone. "Who took the picture last night?" I opened it. The photo showed 3 tents. Owen, Lena, Priya, and I stood in front of them. The picture had been taken from the exact place where the extra tent now stood. Before we left, I looked back once. The tent was no longer breathing. It sagged between its poles like ordinary wet canvas. That frightened me more. Whatever had been inside no longer needed to pretend it was contained. We abandoned everything and forced our way downhill without following markers. 2 hours later, we reached the highway. A truck driver took us to a ranger station. The ranger listened, then asked which campsite we had used. Coldwater 6. He turned his monitor toward us. Coldwater 6 had been closed for 9 years. A flood had erased the gravel shelf. On the current map, our campsite did not exist. Search teams found our packs that afternoon on a dry ridge 6 miles north. They recovered 3 tents, 4 sleeping bags, and no canvas shelter. For a while, that felt like proof we had escaped. Then, an evidence technician returned Owen's backpack. Inside were 5 metal cups. 4 had our names scratched into them. The 5th was still warm. It had no name yet. The Red Children's tent appeared beside the lake while Daniel Ruiz slept. But the footprints leading from it belonged to his 8-year-old son. Daniel had taken Eli camping because the boy had stopped speaking about his mother. 6 months after her funeral, he answered questions and laughed at cartoons, but never said her name. Daniel hoped 2 quiet days at Lake Mercer would loosen something grief had sealed shut. They camped alone on a narrow peninsula. Daniel pitched their gray tent beneath the pines and photographed Eli holding the mallet. Behind him, lake, fire ring, empty grass. At dawn, Daniel woke to a zipper. Eli's sleeping bag was empty. He found him outside, barefoot, staring at a tiny red play tent near the water. It was printed with faded yellow stars. Rain darkened the fabric, though the night had been clear. Small, wet footprints ran from the red tent to Eli. Eli's feet were dry.
"Were you inside it?" Daniel asked. Eli shook his head, then whispered the name he had avoided for 6 months. Mom was. The entrance was secured with a plastic padlock. Through the mesh, Daniel saw a child's blanket and a battery lantern glowing blue. "Someone left it here," he said. Eli looked at him with tired patience. "She said you'd say that." Daniel carried him back, put shoes on him, and called the campground office. His phone showed service, but every number produced 3 soft clicks before disconnecting. He opened the previous evening's photos. The red tent was absent from the first 6. In the 7th, a red blur showed between 2 trees. In the 8th, the tent stood beside the lake. Daniel remembered taking both pictures. He remembered an empty shoreline. Eli pointed at the last image. "Zoom in." A pale hand pressed against the red tent's mesh. Daniel locked the phone and began packing. When the car was loaded, Eli asked, "Where's Rabbit?" The stuffed toy was missing from their tent, the car, and the picnic table. The blue lantern in the red tent went out. A small silhouette appeared behind the mesh. 2 long cloth ears rose beside it. Daniel approached with a tire iron. "I'm taking the toy. Stay back." The plastic lock opened when he touched it. Inside was a blanket printed with clouds, identical to one from Eli's old nursery. Rabbit sat upright at the far wall. Beside it lay a silver bracelet. Daniel recognized the broken clasp. He had fastened it around his wife's wrist before the funeral. Eli stood behind him. "She wants us to play the morning game." "What game?" "The one where she hides and you count." Daniel gripped his shoulders. "Your mother isn't here." Eli's face tightened with disappointment. "I know." A child giggled inside the tent. Eli did not. Daniel took Rabbit and the bracelet, zipped the tent shut, and drove. The exit road was a 1-mile gravel loop. They passed campsite 14, then 15, then their own site again. Their gray tent was back beneath the pines. Their gear remained packed in the car, yet copies occupied the campsite. Chairs open, cooler under the table, Eli's jacket hanging from a branch. A man knelt by the fire with his back to the road. He wore Daniel's blue flannel shirt. Eli whispered, "That's not you yet." The man turned. Smoke hid his face, but he raised one hand and counted on his fingers. 1, 2, 3. Daniel accelerated. The road curved and returned them to the campsite. Now the duplicate Daniel stood beside the red tent. 4, 5. Eli began crying. "He's counting too fast." "What happens when he finishes?" "She finds the one who moved." Daniel drove into the brush toward the highway. Branches scraped the doors. The front wheels sank into mud and the car stopped. Behind them, a man's voice called, 8! Daniel pulled Eli out and ran down a service path. 9! Every bird fell silent. 10! A woman's voice called from the forest, warm and familiar. Ready or not? Daniel froze. For one impossible second, relief overwhelmed reason. It sounded exactly like Mara calling from their yard. Eli squeezed his hand. "Dad, she never said it like that." He was right. Mara always said, "Here I come." She corrected anyone who used the other phrase because Eli hid too well and took warnings literally. The voice knew her sound, not her habits. Daniel lifted Eli and ran.
They reached a locked ranger station near noon. An emergency radio hung outside. Daniel broke the seal and called for help. A dispatcher answered.
Daniel gave their names and coordinates. "Sir," she said after a pause, "is the child with you?" Eli clung to his waist. "Yes. Keep him in sight. A ranger is coming." Her calmness frightened him more than disbelief. "You know about the tent. Do not let your son enter any shelter you did not erect." "He didn't. Do not let him enter the one you did either." Daniel glanced at the station window. In the reflection, he stood alone. He spun around. Eli still held him. The dispatcher asked, "Is he speaking?" "Yes." "What was the first thing he said this morning?" Daniel could not answer. Eli looked up. "Mom was." The radio crackled. Beneath the dispatcher's voice, a child whispered from very far away, "Dad, don't tell it." Daniel released Eli's hand. The boy did not move. He watched Daniel with sudden concentration, waiting to see which explanation he chose. A ranger truck arrived 20 minutes later. Daniel remembered Eli running toward it. He remembered waking in an ambulance with the silver bracelet clenched in his fist. The official report said Daniel had been found alone beside the radio. Eli was missing for 11 hours. Searchers located him after dark, asleep inside Daniel's gray tent at the original campsite. The red tent was gone. For weeks, Daniel treated that as proof. Eli had wandered away. Shock had distorted the rest. Then Eli's therapist called. During their next session, she had asked him to draw the trip. He drew 2 tents beside a lake. A boy stood inside the gray tent. Daniel stood inside the red one. "Children reverse things," she said gently. Then she showed him the sentence beneath the drawing. "Dad came back first." That night, Daniel checked the bracelet in his drawer. Its clasp was no longer broken. Around it, tied in a careful bow, was a strip of wet red fabric. From Eli's bedroom came 3 soft clicks. Then his mother's voice began counting. The duplicate tent contained everything we owned, including food we had not eaten and a radio message we had not sent. There were 3 of us on the 7th day of a backcountry survey in the Bitterroot Range. Me, Nia Calder, a field ecologist, Tomas Venn, our route leader, and Elise Ward, a graduate assistant. We had not seen another person since the trailhead. Our tent was a yellow 4-season model patched with black tape near the rear vent. We pitched it on a granite shelf above the tree line before a storm. Tomas photographed the site. 1 yellow tent, 3 packs, dark clouds. At 3:40 a.m., wind woke us. Something outside snapped in rhythm with our tent flap. Snap. Pause. Snap. Tomas opened the door. A second yellow tent stood 20 feet away. Same model, same black patch, same crooked front pole. Its entrance faced ours like a mirror. Elise said, "We passed somebody's camp in the dark." "No," Tomas replied. "That tent is ours." "Ours is here." "I know." Snow dusted the granite. No tracks crossed the space between them. We waited for sunrise. Whenever our fabric shuddered, the duplicate shuddered a second later. Whenever one of us moved, a shadow shifted inside it. At dawn, Tomas crossed the shelf on an anchor line. Inside the second tent were 3 sleeping bags identical to ours.
Mine had the same coffee stain. Elise's had the repair she had sewn with dental floss. Tomas's contained his red beanie, though the real one was on his head. Every item had a copy: stove, notebooks, samples, boots, even Tomas's cracked green mug. The copies were subtly wrong. Labels were backward, zippers pulled from the opposite side. My notebook contained my handwriting slanting left. "It's staged," Elise said. Tomas opened the duplicate food bag. It held sealed packets marked Day 8.
Those meals were buried at our supply cache 9 miles east. On top lay an empty packet marked Day 9. Our route ended on Day 8. Both radios broadcast a weather warning at once. "Severe wind after 1800. Shelter in place." Our radio went silent. The duplicate continued. "Do not occupy the older shelter." We checked the manufacturer tags. Our tent's serial number ended in 4418. The duplicate ended in 4417. One number earlier. For a moment, the number felt comforting. It suggested a factory error or another expedition, something human. Then I found my emergency card in the duplicate pack. On the back, in my handwriting, were 3 words: "We chose wrong." We decided to abandon both tents and descend before the storm. Tomas marked ours with orange tape. Elise marked the duplicate blue and drew a chalk line between them. 200 yards down the ridge, orange tape fluttered from a boulder ahead. The GPS showed us moving east while the compass showed west. Our breadcrumb trail formed a circle around camp. We climbed back to the shelf. Only one tent remained. The blue tape lay on the ground. Orange tape hung from the surviving tent. "That's ours," Elise said, almost laughing. Inside were our muddy prints and Tomas's beanie. Then I checked the tag. 4417. The older tent. "The tags were switched," Tomas said. Elise held up my notebook. Every page was now written left-handed. The storm arrived early. Wind made standing impossible. With no safe route down, we entered the only shelter left. For an hour, nothing happened. The tent held. The stove worked. We warmed up. Then Elise found tomorrow's meals in her pack. Tomas found a 4th spoon. I found an audio file on the duplicate radio. Its timestamp was 6 hours ahead. The recording began with my voice. "Base, this is Calder. Venn is missing. Ward is not Ward." A man screamed in the background. Elise backed away. "Why would you say that?" "I haven't." Tomas took the radio. "It can be faked." The wall behind him pressed inward. A human hand spread against the fabric from outside. The wind stopped. A second hand appeared. Then a face-shaped hollow leaned into the nylon. Tomas reached for the zipper. The future recording resumed by itself. My voice shouted, "Don't let him open it." From outside, Tomas's voice said, "Nia, she changed the tags." Elise whispered, "That isn't him." The real Tomas stood between us. The outside voice continued, "Ask her which hand she writes with." "I'm right-handed," I said. "So am I," my voice answered from outside. 3 shapes surrounded the tent. Each used one of our voices. Each knew what we knew. They did not threaten us. They argued logically, each claiming to be trapped outside while a copy occupied the shelter. Tomas told us not to answer. The voices began describing private memories.
My sister's nickname, Elise's hidden tattoo, the last words Tomas's father had spoken. Then my outside voice said, "When you woke at 3:40, the second tent was already open." I remembered seeing it half open at dawn. I also remembered seeing it closed during the night. Both memories felt real. Elise looked at the reversed notebook. "It isn't copying our gear. It's copying the whole camp." That was the first explanation that fit. The extra tent was not appearing beside us. One campsite was becoming two, and each version believed it was original. The radio crackled.
A new transmission appeared, time-stamped 12 minutes ahead. Elise's voice said, "There are 6 of us now." Through the mesh, another yellow tent stood at the far end of the shelf. Then another appeared behind it. 4 identical doors began opening. Tomas cut through the rear wall. We roped together and crawled into the whiteout, navigating downhill by elevation. Voices followed from every direction, giving advice. "Left side is a drop. Your anchor is loose. Elise is hypothermic." Some warnings were true. Others became true only after we ignored them. Halfway down, the rope jerked. Tomas vanished behind blowing snow. A voice ahead shouted, "I'm here!" Another behind us shouted the same. Elise cut the rope and ran toward the nearer voice. I never saw her again. Rescuers found me the next afternoon, carrying 2 radios with the same serial number. Tomas and Elise were never found. 6 months later, I received a storage invoice for recovered equipment. The inventory listed 4 yellow tents. At the evidence warehouse, 3 were folded on a shelf. The 4th stood inside a locked cage. A clerk said they collapsed it each night, but by morning it was standing again. The folded tents were tagged Calder, Venn, and Ward. The standing tent had no name. From inside came the scratch of a pen across paper. Then a radio crackled behind the canvas. My voice said, "Base, this is Calder. We found the original." The clerk looked relieved. I was not. The transmission came from inside the tent, but the radio in my coat answered it.